Hi there, and welcome to Making It. I'm Morgan, and today we're going to be making pork shoulder country style ribs on the RecTeq. Let's get to it. First things first, we're going to get set up by putting on nitrile gloves. I prefer nitrile gloves to vinyl or latex due to the ability of nitrile to not melt in the heat of the grill. Later, you may notice that they look a little thicker, and that's due to the cotton liner I'll wear under them to be able to handle the hot meat right on the grill. Next, let's start getting our ingredients prepared. Something I like to do to make everything easier is I wrap my seasoning container in plastic wrap. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave it open so that it's ready for use. Today, we're going to be using the honey rib rub by RecTec. It's a smoky sweet rub with dehydrated honey in it that's just fantastic. I also like to wrap my binder, whether I'm using yellow mustard like I am today, duck fat, or avocado oil. Doing this allows me to go from working on the meat and back to my binder or rub without causing cross-contamination. It also makes cleanup easy as I will not need to scrub down my bottles. Now, these are called country style ribs. However, they're actually cut from the pork shoulder, also known as the pork butt. The front shoulder was called the pork butt because this was the name of the barrel type containers they were stored in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The first time that the Boston butt appears in print is actually 1915. But I digress. Because this is cut from the pork shoulder, it's very fatty, and some slices will have a thick fat cap that needs to be removed, much like we would remove it if we were doing a shoulder for pulled pork. Thick, hard fat like this does not allow the rub or smoke to permeate the meat. So I'm going to use my Victorinox 6-inch flex blade knife, and I'm going to make small cuts with the blade angled away from the meat and remove these thicker, harder pieces of fat. If you don't want to remove it all, don't. But if you do, don't be afraid. There's plenty of intramuscular fat running through the muscle to keep the meat tender and juicy through the cook. Something you can do if you want to save the fat is you can save it for your grind, adding it to lean beef, ground pork, or even poultry to make excellent ground meats for sausages and patties. Today I'm using regular yellow mustard as a binder to get the rub to stick to the meat. I use it because it's readily available and relatively inexpensive, especially considering the fact that this is something you're not going to taste. But if you're concerned about tasting the mustard, you can use other things such as ketchup, mayonnaise, all over avocado oil. Anything that has a decent fat content. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give this a thick dusting of the rub, making sure we coat as many surfaces as we can. Once the rub starts to turn dark red and start to adhere to the pork, we're going to flip it over and get the other sides. Sometimes you're going to need to turn the meat 3 or 4 times and mix it all around to get a thorough coat. These cuts are about 1.5 to 2 inches thick, so do not be afraid of over seasoning. You won't. I am not going to say you can't, because someone out there will make a point to prove me wrong, but you'll most likely won't overdo it. As we go, we're going to be looking for small pieces hanging off and remove them so that they don't burn and turn the meat bitter during the cook. With the meat seasoned up, we're going to let it rest about 30 minutes for the salts to interact with the meat. Now that we have the meat thoroughly seasoned, we're going to give it about 30 minutes for the salts to interact with the meat. While we wait, we're going to go ahead and preheat the RecTec to 225 degrees. When you can start to see some fluid being pulled from the meat, you'll know it's time to head out to the grill. With the grill preheated to 225 degrees, we're going to lay out our country style ribs. You don't want to stretch them too much, but you also don't want them all balled up. We're saving the thickest one for last to put the meat probe into, so that we can track the cook on the RecTec wide pellet app. Alright, it's been about 3 hours and the ribs are right at 190 degrees internal per the RecTec wide pellet app. So we're going to go ahead and sauce them right here on the grill. Using the hot air around the meat, to help get the mild Kinder's organic barbecue sauce we're using to tack up to the meat. We're going to brush it on for a nice even coat. I'm doing it this way because I do not want to run the risk of the sauce burning with the lid closed. Yet the heat of the grill and the meat will allow the sauce to adhere and become sticky and tacky. After we get a good coat of sauce brushed on, we're going to pull the ribs and bring them inside. We're going to let them rest for about 10 minutes, during which the internal temperature will come to 195 internal, making the meat juicy and pull apart tender. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this pilot episode of Making It. I'm Morgan, and I'll catch you guys next time. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and do not forget to like and subscribe for future content. You can follow along on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat about updates and teasers about future episodes. If there's something you want to see made, please let us know.